my last day in the Marine Corps. I am literally in my squadron saying my final goodbyes before I leave base for the last time as an active duty Marine. And Jamie calls me. She's like, hey, babe. And she's like, hey, I am pregnant. And I was like, okay, cool. I hang up the phone. I was like, well, I'm going to be a dad and I am now unemployed. I have no insurance. I have really no money and I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And I just found out I'm going to be a dad. And I was like, cool. How's it going?
I am okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, I'm actually doing really good this morning. I slept pretty good last night.
Okay.
The night before that, I just been sleeping like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rough nights, waking up. Brain is very, very active. Very much like overanalyzing and overthinking and processing. And yeah, we're very much in fight or flight right now. So a lot of flighting and freezing.
Gotcha.
Not very much fight.
Not a lot of fighting?
No. But other than that, doing okay.
That's good. Not sleeping sucks.
Dude, the more and more I look at it and the more and more I sit with it, I'm like, I mean, we've really f***ed up in this world and in this country when it comes to like the prioritization of sleep and looking at it as like the most important thing that we should all be doing for our health.
It's up there.
Yeah. No, I think it's number one. Number one. Think about it. Like
I'm gonna disagree with number one.
It's number one.
What's number one?
No, sleep is.
It's not.
We don't need to go further. This podcast, we're done.
Breathing.
That's true. Okay.
Okay.
Number two.
Boom. You're like, shit. Damn it.
I was like, he ain't coming up with nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing to rival sleep.
That's right. You ain't got shit.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess breath is important.
Yep. I'm going to go with probably water and food after that.
Yeah. No, I think sleep's after breath. Yeah.
I'm going to go with survivability. Right.
What do they say? Like 24, 48 hours or something like that with water?
So, yeah, I think water is 72 hours.
Well, those dumb people are doing water fasts now. Have you seen that?
No.
Where they'll do like 5 days without water?
No, that's the dumb side of TikTok. I stay away from it. The water fast. No.
That's a thing. I got to do one.
So are coffee enemas, but that doesn't mean I do those
I got to
either.
do one of those too. That's on my list of to-dos.
Is it?
That's what I was going to do this morning before we started recording.
Feeling zesty and fresh.
I'm done drinking this shit. I want to mainline it.
We're going to mainline. I'm going to butt chug some coffee. Butt chug some coffee.
How's your, how are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like the balance of like trying to find, nothing's ever in balance for me. I don't think I've ever felt like I will either go really hard with work and I get super exhausted and then I'm like burnt out from that. And then that trickles over into other things, but we were on vacation, right? Well, not like I had a work trip that was kind of vacation-ish.
Up to the Canadians?
Up to Canada. Vancouver.
We love our Canadian friends.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like I've actually got a lot of people that I know up in Canada.
Yeah.
Super awesome people.
Yeah, exactly. I've got family in Canada.
Do you?
Yeah, they're not like real family.
You're like, hold on a minute.
Yeah, it's my mom's second husband's family.
Okay.
Like I think his mother, her husband, some of their brothers, sisters, stuff like that. People who I grew up with, right?
Good people.
Good people. They live in Canada. But we got to do that. So it was super fun to go like relax. Like we didn't have the kids. So it was just kind of just me and Jamie hanging out and super enjoyed all that. We ate good food.
Get some poutine. Do you know what the poutine is?
What's poutine?
The whole thing up in Canada where they're putting poutine on French fries.
Oh, no, we actually didn't. We had some...
it's like the gravy with the curds.
Yeah. No, we didn't actually have any poutine. I've had poutine before. No, we did have a bunch. We went to in Vancouver, they have like a little like kind of market.
Mm-hmm.
Like... it's got a bunch of different shops that do like, here's the bagel guys and the bread guys and the cheese guys and the meat guys and the fish guys, right? With the boba guys and
it's
all.
It's like a legit market.
It was a straight up like, and we actually got a tour of this legit market. So it was super fun. Got to try a bunch of different things. So we got to sample a lot of foods and breads and cheeses and all this.
That's a good time.
It was super fun. Enjoyed that aspect of it. Great. Got to have some really fun, like interesting goat's cheese, jam, berry, elixirs or something like that. So that was all super fun, right? There is still work required with that. So like that was great. But then it's like you travel home and you're like, oh, all the resting I just did, sleeping in the nice bed. We got massages one day, right?
Wow,
We did all that stuff. And then I was like, and then I got in a tube full of farts and flew from Vancouver to Dallas and then Dallas to home. And I was like, well, and then drove home. And then I was like, well, there goes all my rest and relaxation. Right. So
immediately got
immediately got
8-hour trip home.
Yeah. So
that sucks.
But hey, Lions won.
Would they play again on Sunday?
They played on Sunday, right? So big shout out, Lions. I love you guys. I appreciate MCDC, Motor City Dan Campbell, head coach of the Lions. MCDC, best nickname in the world. It's crazy. They came back. It was super. I got to watch the first half at the airport, and the second half we were on a plane I lied. I totally turned my cell phone on to get service because the internet wasn't working. And I'm trying to watch the game, and it was terrible. I couldn't get the internet to work.
I used to leave mine on all the time.
Oh, yeah. And I flew in helicopters in the Marine Corps. It doesn't matter. Right? If you get arrested, that's on you, right? That wasn't me, right? Don't take my advice on this, but it doesn't change shit.
Yes, it does. Put it in airplane mode.
No, it doesn't mean shit. I can promise you it doesn't change.
Right.
Because I do it all the time. And they're not like, oh, we can't take off. Somebody's got their phone on.
I know. They're up there looking at the screen, and they see a little blue dot click on.
They're like, hey guys, I know we were going to Dallas, but we ended up in Arkansas because somebody turned their phone on. Yeah, no,
the passenger in seat 32F.
Right.
We see you.
Yeah, we see you. Turn your fucking phone off. But yeah, Lions came back and won. That was awesome. 7 games in a row.
How long is this season?
So
I know that the Super Bowl's in January, February.
Yeah. So season will go till I think it's the first or second week of January, and then that's the the regular season, and then we go into the playoffs.
Okay.
Right, and then that'll be for a couple weeks.
Is that postseason?
Postseason, right, and then we get the Super Bowl.
Nice.
Where the Lions will defeat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Do you think they're going to go up against the Chiefs?
Right now, all signs would point to that. If it is the Chiefs and the Lions in the Super Bowl, I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be it'll be a great opportunity to show just how amazing the Detroit Lions are, because they're going to go against a great team. Some would call the Kansas City Chiefs a dynasty right now. I think they've won 3 out of the last 4 or 5 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes repeat, he's
okay.
They're a rock solid team. I would go as far to say that they're approaching dynasty. If they even go to the Super Bowl this year, I would totally call it a dynasty team.
Nice.
But
so the Lions are going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, I mean it'll be hard, but it's not going to be that hard. it'll be like, oh, that was difficult, but walking up my driveway is difficult.
Do you wish that they did? Do you think the Super Bowl should just be the one game, or do you wish they did like a series like they do in baseball and basketball?
I think so that's a really good question. I think that the one and done in football is probably pretty good. Baseball, basketball, nothing, hockey maybe, but nothing's as physical as football.
Yeah.
And I mean, the joke is other than one team, they actually call it the Detroit hangover. When you play the Lions, because the Lions are such a physical team, that you lose the next week. You're going to lose to the Lions, right? But then you lose the next game.
Right. You got to recover.
Because you're just so beat up. You're just so oh, God, that sucked. It's like rolling with a white belt after you had a really hard, super aggressive, high speed, strength intensive roll. And then some white belt comes in and you're like, I don't even want to be here right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some 19-year-old kid that wrestled in high school.
Right.
Is in between jobs, looking for something to do.
Yeah, thinks he's going to be an MMA fighter.
Wants to start fighting.
Yeah, wants to start fighting because he thinks this is his way to celebrity
Right.
or like fandom. Or...
He's watched all of Danaher's clips on YouTube and he's ready for it.
Dude, that's all he does. He's got all the Fanatics videos downloaded on his phone, and he does it in his basement. Yeah.
I'm excited for today's episode, dude.
Me too.
It came to me this weekend. I don't even remember what I was processing or going through. I've had so much stuff I've been excited to talk to you about because it's been a pretty productive, like, internal work time period for Craig in the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if I'm going to, because, yeah, this episode is all about dad stuff. We're going to share our stories of being dads and our experience of being dads and fatherhood and the whole 9 yards, because I've been a dad for 25 years.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Like, I sit and think about it, and I mean, that's more than half my life.
Yeah, you've been a dad 2.5 times longer than I have.
Yeah. So it's a crazy experience, and I'm excited to get into it. But I've been... I have this epiphany, this awareness that came to me this morning as I was sitting on the toilet taking a shit, remembering, I know, right? Remembering your wonderful phone call yesterday and the way that you forced our friendship to the next level.
So, for our listeners and viewers, so I wanted to talk to Craig yesterday, but I also had to go to the restroom. So I got on the toilet and I called Craig. And I think I started the conversation with like, hey, I just want to let you know.
You know where I'm at?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that.
Guess where I'm at?
Yeah, I said, I wanna let you know that our friendship has gone to the next level. And you were like, are you in the bathroom right now? And I was like, yeah. And you're like, that's a conversation we have, Ben. You don't get to just force me into it. And I was like, we're here now, man. Like, yeah, like we're doing
it's happening. Don't look away. Don't look away. So I was doing the same thing this morning, and I had the decency not to call you. It was pretty early. I should have woken you up at 7, though.
Oh, 7? I was already done working out.
That's true, yeah. So I'm sitting there, and I've had another pickleball injury, but we've talked about it. It's not another one. It's just a continuing, ongoing
paddle sports,
strain
man, dangerous thing in the world.
They are. They're incredibly dangerous. But it's metaphoric for me. It's always about what is my body trying to communicate to me? What's the universe trying to tell me? Why does this keep happening? What's this injury and what it's correlated and connected to and all that stuff, right? So I've been trying to really process it and break it down and figure it out for months because I've been fucking dealing with these calves for months, right?
I think you've been dealing with those calves your whole life.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, they're good looking calves. Look how tight they are in your pants.
Yeah, don't touch that one. That's the sore one.
Oh, sorry.
That's the
Is
injured
it crampy?
one.
I'm over here just rubbing on your legs.
But it was on our Steph and Craig the other day. We were talking about it, and Steph really helped me unpack it and figure it out. And it's like she had all of these like beautiful things to highlight and say about what our calves do, like in general, people, right? They're such a important muscle that goes forgotten oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And they're responsible for all sorts of different parts and pieces and movement and everything like that. She's a massage therapist. Mm-hmm. And so she had a ton of like, I loved it when she was going through massage school because she would come home with all this information, not just like get to practice all the massage and all the different techniques and everything, but the anatomy and understanding like all the muscles and the bones and everything. It was really, really fun and cool. And so she's kind of really, I mean, she is my go-to for a lot of stuff, but there was that aspect of it of just looking at how much the calves do and supporting us as people, right? Yeah. And the things that we choose to do in our life. But then it became much more about what I'm putting on my shoulders and what I'm carrying and what I'm continuing to carry and how long I've carried it. And it was suddenly like, what am I not looking at? Mm-hmm. Because I continually am always like looking for what the next thing is in regards to healing and growth. And I'm like always going towards things. And I feel like I have a really healthy plate right now of stuff that I'm processing. So the idea that there is something that I'm missing, I'm like, what the fuck? And it was very much like I keep tripping myself up, right? Mm-hmm. The metaphor of my calves. And I was watching Troy the other day, right?
Such a classic
and
one.
Old Achilles. And so I'm sitting there thinking about Achilles heel and my calves and everything. And I also got sidetracked on Troy because I'm like, why is Troy nowhere near the movie that Gladiator is? Like, they're two movies that could have been, Troy could have been really, really good.
I mean,
When's the last time you watched it?
I mean, I think I watched it probably. I would not be surprised if I watched it in the last 5 years. So it's a solid movie that when it goes on, like
but compare it to Gladiator.
So okay,
watch them. Don't watch them side by side.
Oh yeah, that's.
But watch Troy.
Yeah.
Thinking about, Gladiator. Like, compare the two of them, and immediately you're
Gladiator
just
is the superior movie.
100%.
100%.
It's so much better.
It really is.
Troy looks like a fucking it's a shit show compared to Gladiator. You watch it and you're like, this is the dumbest movie.
The stories are different.
They're very different.
Yeah.
Very different story.
Yeah. But I still think Troy is a really good movie.
I do too. But it's nowhere. I got pissed off. I'm like, this movie sucks, because I was comparing it to Gladiator the whole time.
Well, I mean,
and like halfway through, I'm like, this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. But anyways, I digress. That's not the important part. Back to my calves and the realization of I have just repeatedly over the course of my entire life, time and time again, sacrificed my body.
Mm-hmm.
And my body is like done with that.
Yeah.
My body's like, dude, we're done. Mm-hmm. What are you not looking at? Me, meaning like my body, my body just screaming out, being like, pay attention to us. And so a lot of what I've been doing for months and months and months is this process of trying to figure out how can I become physically and emotionally and mentally and spiritually this best version of myself. And a big part of it has to do with the physicality, like my body itself. Mm-hmm. But it's also, I've known for a long time that I've got a lot of stored trauma in my body. And so I've got a plan. Like I said, this came to me this morning, and it's like, I almost don't want to speak it, because as soon as I speak it, then I have to do it. It's kind of the thing where
say it.
I know, right?
Say it.
Because I've been thinking about your 75 hard, and don't get too excited, because it's within the scope of what I want to do. Like, I have zero desire to do what you're doing. I have zero desire to do 75 hard. I'm sure it's fun. There's parts of it that's fun.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not doing any, like, you see me, I can't walk down the fucking porch. Like, I can't go down steps right now. So I'm not doing any 75 hard. But all of this stuff that I'm talking about, this little awareness that I've had in the last couple of days, I have been feeling intensely pulled back to
steroids.
To steroids, right. To methamphetamine. No.
Those are different.
Yoga.
Okay. Yeah.
Yoga.
Yeah, which is like the steroids light.
Right. It's the spiritual equivalent of steroids. No. So I'm just going to go back to the yoga mat, because it's one of the things that I really feel not just pulled to, but I feel like it's going to be a whole new experience for me, because the intention is so different this time, where it's like, I'm not just going back to the yoga mat to like slow down and do yoga, but it's like, oh, this is where I'm going to start doing some of this really deep work that I need to. And at the same time, fix this fucking body. Yeah. Like, so much of yoga for me is the somatic experience of just being really, really connected to my physical body and aware of what it's doing and what it's feeling and how it's moving. And when I think about it from that lens, I've been incredibly disconnected from it for like months and months and months. I don't really feel connected to it at all anymore. And so I'm going to do 75 days of yoga.
There you go.
Right?
I like that.
So it's 75 days of yoga, being on the mat, doing yoga for 75 days straight.
That's what I'm going to do. Is today day one?
Today's day one. I haven't done it yet. Because I was busy shitting and thinking about you.
Okay.
But today will be day one. And I know we don't record and release, like, this will be out at some point.
Yeah.
So what's today? The 12th?
Today is the 12th?
November 12th.
Yeah.
75 days of yoga.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for you.
I'm excited too.
Yeah. I think 75 days of yoga to help, if anything, it's great for your body, right? I've done a ton of yoga over the years. Like, I've never been a super consistent, like, doing yoga weekly. Well, that's not even true. I've totally done yoga weekly. But like when we had my gym, Like we had a yoga instructor who was great. She ran a yoga class once or twice a week sometimes. I did yoga in college. I've done yoga when I was a whitewater raft guide. The local like big box gym had a yoga class. Used to go to that. It's mostly centered around trying to pick up chicks. Not gonna lie, it's really been a fair amount. Any yoga I did prior to meeting my wife, the goal was to meet chicks.
Yeah.
Or I was there with a girl. Right, chicks is probably not the best way to, but we're gonna stick with it.
Yoga chicks,
right? So I was like, "Hey, I'm here to meet yoga chicks." And then when I met my wife, I was like, "Well, I'm not looking for that anymore." But my wife's like, "Let's go to yoga." I'm like, "All right, cool, we'll go to yoga." So I think yoga's good, and I think I do believe that you can get kind of like aligned, right? I definitely think about the mind-body connection in yoga and feeling as you're doing things and breathing and all that, and getting your chakras all squared away.
It's a thing, dude.
I believe it is.
It's a thing. My calves right now are screaming to me because of my root chakra.
Right.
This is all root and sacral chakra stuff that I'm trying to process and heal through. It's where all my biggest wounds are. And when my foundation isn't balanced, when my foundation is off, right? Everything else just fucking goes haywire from that point. So I'm going back to the foundation. I'm going back to the root. I'm just going to get really, like, it's the simplest thing of like, do you ever stand? One of the things that I loved from yoga, the Tadasana, is mountain pose. It's just where you're standing there, arms down to your side. It's like aligning your entire skeletal system so that it's properly in alignment, hips, shoulders, everything. And then you just stand there in awe. That's Tadasana, right? And I love it. But the Tadasana starts at your feet, where you've got to spread out your toes. You've got to really get a foundation in your feet. And I have so much awareness, and I forget about it because it's just how I move. But I walk, not when I don't mean like funky. I don't have like a weird walk, but my left foot will tilt inwards. So my left foot goes a little pigeon-toed when I walk. And because of that, it throws out my knee, it throws out my hip, it throws out everything else.
I get that.
And so if I'm just standing like in line at the grocery store or something like that, or standing at the counter, I'll just pause for a moment and see where the weight is on my feet. And the majority of the time, my weight is on the outside of my feet, which means I'm opening up my hips and my legs and all of these different parts of my body, right? And again, it makes total sense when I start to think about how out of alignment, my hips and my knees and my shoulders and everything else is. So what I'll do is when I'm standing there, I'll roll my knees inwards and I'll bring all of that weight from the outside of my feet to the inside of my feet. And I can feel all this engagement happening in my legs and my hamstrings. And the next thing that happens is my lower back opens up and just goes, and all that pain and discomfort that I carry in my lower back oftentimes gets relief. And suddenly you're like, oh, maybe if I learned how to walk right in a normal, like straightforward gait, right, then I wouldn't have all of this pain and discomfort. So I'm excited because I know that when I get really dialed in on yoga,
your body's feeling better.
My body feels so much better. And it's like that trickle down effect where it has so many beautiful ramifications for me, because next thing you know, I'm meditating, I'm breathing, I'm, breath work, I'm all of these amazing things. So I'm excited. 75 days.
That's awesome.
Starting today.
You hit on a point there, like your hips and your, like, I was working with one of our newer guys who started to train in the morning, Austin, bigger guy, right? Younger, bigger, like super nice guy. One of his kids go to school with my daughter. Great family, but he's like, yeah, my lower back's super tight. And I was like, and there's a stretch that I have helped a lot of people with. You have them lay down, you isolate their hips. You put like your knee or your hand on the back side of their pelvis, keep that down. You bring their leg up so that it's at a 90-degree toes to the sky. And then you kind of just rock back and forth to open that hip up.
Yeah.
And his leg didn't move. It was just, and as I literally pushed it a half inch one way, and he was like, and I was like, whoa, man, like, this should this should move around a
Right.
little bit. His didn't move at all. And I just helped him for a second. I mean, 2 minutes of stretching. And he was like, that feels so much better. I was like, well, yeah. And all that's connected to your lower back.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then it's so many things. I mean, I think about it a lot like posture. Right. And just as I sit there, and if I notice that I'm kind of hunched over, try to sit up, pull my shoulders back, like sit up. Hey, let's sit tall. Right. Can I engage my core while I'm sitting? Just trying to stay,
Steph and I call it tits up. So we'll remind each other,
Yeah.
like
Hey.
when we're recording a lot of times when we're doing the podcast, because you kind of have a tendency to just like
Hey,
come
tits
down in, right? Oh,
Oh.
okay. And then it's like sit up nice and tall and get them girls out and
You do
get
one of these things.
get the microphone.
Oh,
up
right there in the middle?
Right. And then they just hold it.
Is that not what you do?
No, Ben.
Sorry.
Ben, no.
To get this. So we're going to talk about fatherhood.
Right? Yeah. Let's get into it. I'm excited, dude. Where do you want to start?
I want to know, I know that we had talked about this a little bit, but so there's all this time as a boy and a young man, and then the moment there's this switch and you're going to be a father, and everything before that is different for now on.
Yeah.
You're going to be a father. You're siring a child,
Mhm.
right? And what is that initial feeling like? If you remember, up to that point, like, were you looking forward? Did you want to have kids? Were you the person who was like, I don't want kids? Like, were you excited about having kids? Were you scared? Like, all the way up to, hey, you're going to be a dad.
Yeah. Okay.
What was that like for you?
It was interesting. So I think I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to be a dad.
Why did you want to be a dad?
I don't know. I just remember thinking, like, I picked out my kids' names when I was a kid. Like when I was growing up, I used to think about like kid names that I would.
You
name
don't know why you wanted to be a dad?
Well, I don't have, I can't think back to like
It was a long time ago.
8, 9, 10 years old. It wasn't something that I spent a lot of time thinking
Okay.
about, but I knew I wanted to be a dad. I knew I wanted to have kids. It was something that I was looking forward to in life when the time came. I wasn't obsessed with it or anything like that, but I mean, I would think about.
You didn't have like little kid dolls in your pocket you were carrying around?
No.
Because that would be weird.
Right.
I'm just waiting for my own.
No.
Okay.
But
you picked out their names.
yeah, I mean, it was stuff like
Weirdo.
that where I would, think about what I would name my kids one day. And then what happened to me, because it was a very different experience than kind of like a traditional, you find out that somebody's pregnant or whatever. That wasn't the case for me. What happened was I was 18, trying to think back. I was trying to think back of all the time, so I could have something accurate. But it was, I was 18 or 19 years old. Let me think, because we talked about on a previous episode, I was talking about Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was all post Minnesota.
I would hope so.
After I had come
Yeah.
back from Minnesota and been home for a while. So I was 19 and I started working at a Cracker Barrel,
Awesome.
right? It was a really fun
Were you a
job.
cook?
I was a server initially.
Okay.
And eventually I did a bunch of different things there. I was there for a while. I really enjoyed it. It's a great place to work, or at least it was 20 years ago, right?
Okay.
Whether or not it still is. But I got the job as a fluke almost. I was in the area and filling out applications. And I was at the time looking for like call center jobs and stuff like
Okay.
that. I had done some of those before,
Yeah.
so I was familiar with that. But this restaurant was in that little business district. And when I don't even know why I stopped in. I don't think I stopped in for lunch. Maybe I stopped in to use the bathroom or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a now hiring sign.
Yeah.
So I filled out an application and ended up getting that job. And it was the first time that I ever waited tables. And they had like the thing that Cracker Barrel did really good. And I'm assuming they still do it because like I go in there and I still pay attention. I'm
Yeah.
looking, I'm watching, I'm seeing what they're doing,
Yeah.
making sure they're doing shit right.
Right.
And but they have a really extensive training process.
Okay.
And so you're in like training for a week, and it's like classroom, and they're talking to you about, you know, you're learning about the company, you're learning about everything in regards to Cracker Barrel. It's not just how to be a server, but it's the whole shtick of the store, so that you're really ingrained into it. And then they had a really good streamlined system for, hey, real quick, if you're just somebody that listens to podcasts, thank you. But if you want to watch us week after week, jump over to our YouTube channel. Just search out bravemendare. Click that subscribe button. Don't forget the little notification bell, and come see what we're all about week after week on the podcast. We share tons of content there as well, and we even have some plans in the future to do some live episodes. So come subscribe to us on YouTube, and while you're at it, you might as well follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as well. We hope you're enjoying this episode. Let's get back to it. Taking orders. And so it was very detailed on, it was just really cool. It was a great foundational training for serving, because I went on and I had a bunch of other jobs over the course of my life in my 20s, waiting tables and doing different things. And that
was a good base.
And yeah, Cracker Barrel was like the best foundational training for that. So it was really cool. It was a fun job. I had a good time. I was young. I was 19.
Okay.
I was living in Salt Lake City at the time. Basically, it was West Valley is where it was, but obviously that's not applicable to where we're at.
Nope.
So I'm living in the city, moved out of the house. I ended up living with a friend who worked at the restaurant.
Okay.
It was another woman. She was similar age. I think she was close to, or if not the same age. She had a kid. She had a boyfriend in jail. It was like this really sketchy situation, but it was like, hey,
this will be fun.
I need a place to stay. Should we get an apartment together? And she's like, I need a place to stay, because so it worked out for a little bit. But it was an interesting part of life. I was very much like trying new things, doing new things, experiencing new things, kind of out on my own. And this girl starts working at Cracker Barrel one day.
The same girl or a different?
A different girl.
Gotcha.
Right. So this girl comes in and starts working, and fast forward, it's my future wife.
Okay.
Right. It was my first wife. And she had a 18-month-old daughter.
Okay.
And I remember she used to bring her in after shift, or on her days off or something like that, would come in and have dinner and whatnot. And she would bring her daughter with her. And so I really fell in love with both of them. But there was something really special about Gwen, and that's her name. That's my daughter's name. And she had little curly hair, and it was winter time, because the time frame when my ex started working there, it was like in the fall. That's interesting. I always think about seasons and the things that happen during different phases of my life. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that I would have met her during this time period.
Is that like a favorite season for you?
No, but like fall, winter time is typically when I do a lot of, it's kind of like a transition time for me. So that's a sidetrack. We're talking about dad stuff. And yeah, man, I just fucking fell in love with this little girl.
Okay.
She was so freaking cute and so adorable and so fun. And so it was like, she was with us all the time, right?
Yeah.
Our very first date, we took Gwen.
Yeah.
It was her kid. Of course we're going to do that.
But she's not like a teenager you can leave at home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Gwen was with us all the time, and I just fell in love with her. And our relationship moved pretty quickly, because at the time I say, like, I'm any fucking different today. I tend to I don't do good alone. I'm not good single. It's really, really hard for me to be single.
Okay.
And so our relationship moved really quickly. Like, we basically started dating and then just immediately moved in with each other and started living with each other, which meant I was basically just sleeping at her house every night.
Yeah.
And then we eventually got an apartment together, and we actually changed jobs and moved and got married later on and everything like that. But yeah, I met Gwen when she was 18 months old and just fell in love with her. And because Ryan and I, that's her name, obviously, my first wife, because we were just together all the time, I was spending a lot of time with Gwen. And when we moved out, it's because Ryan got a job with the post office.
Okay.
So she was a mail carrier for a really long time, and that was a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were both, I was 19. Ryan's like 2 years older than me, I think. So she's 21 or something. So to get like a really good job at that age was pretty cool. I mean, it's
benefits.
Benefits.
Yeah, yeah.
It's great
Listen,
hourly salary.
Any 20, 21-year-old with benefits,
right?
King of the world.
Yeah. So she got a great job, and that meant that I stayed home with Gwen.
Okay.
So in the span of like 6 months from meeting to now we're living in a different city. We moved out of the city that we were living in, quit jobs and just completely shifted our life up. And now I'm a stay-at-home dad with this 18-month-old, 2-year-old little girl.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. It was like one of the best times of my life.
That's awesome.
Because it was hard. It was challenging. It was really difficult to go from like, doing stuff every single day as like an adult, even though I totally was a kid, right?
Yeah.
19 years old.
Yeah, right. We're
I look
like,
back and I
you're
think,
legally an adult.
right?
Yeah.
But man, I was such a kid. And so I would go crazy some days, and it was really challenging because Gwen is an amazing person.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a really easy kid. Like she was a great kid, but I got the phase of like, potty training and all of these other little fun things. She was still, I don't think she was in diapers when I met her. She was still in diapers. But anyways, it was beautiful because it was just me and her.
Yeah.
And I used to throw her in this backpack, like one of those walking backpacks that you would take hiking or something like that, because we only had one vehicle.
Okay.
And so when Ryan was at work all frickin' day long, if we didn't get out of the house, like we'd go crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I would put her in the backpack and take her on these big long walks where we'd go. And
did you have like her head hanging out?
They're like the old school metal framed backpacks.
Yeah.
And
so she's just all curled up.
Yeah, I mean, she's got her legs out and she's totally riding on top of my shoulders.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you like actually physically put her in a backpack, like zipped it up, and was like, "No, kid, we're going. Just stop wiggling around."
No, one of those like don't you remember seeing those? They're like the hiking backpacks. So it's got a completely built on frame.
Yeah,
and then they attach carrying.
It's meant for carrying kids.
Yeah, it's a kid. It's a kid backpack.
Kid backpack.
Yeah, so you set them down into it, and you strap them in,
like a kid carrier.
Yeah,
baby bonjour.
Yeah, and I loved it. And so we used to go all over with that.
That's cool.
It was a lot of fun.
It's an interesting way to go into, because like at that point, it's this slow transition into like into fatherhood, right? Like it wasn't one of those things, because it's different, right? Like for me, I was like, I got the phone call, and we could talk about that at a different time maybe, but like, hey, you're going to be a dad.
Yeah.
Right. Or, hey, I'm pregnant. Right. Like the doctor said. And it's like, oh, okay. And like what that does versus you met a woman who had a kid you instantly like fell in love with, but you still like, that's still a transition, right? Over time, there's not this, it's not a light switch, it's a dimmer that we're going to turn the volume up on this over time.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Did it feel different after Gwen when Ryan got pregnant with your first biological child?
Yeah, I mean that definitely had a different feel to it for sure. And like, so I meet Ryan, her and I get married like a year and a half later or something like that. And then I adopt Gwen like 6 months after that.
Okay.
And so Gwen was 2, I think, like 2.5 when I adopted her. And that was just an unreal, like beautiful experience. It was so fun to get to be like, you know, her dad. Like I just fucking loved it.
Yeah.
I remember because she used to call me Ted because she couldn't say Craig.
Ted?
So Craig was her equivalent of Craig, or Ted was her equivalent of.
I can see the connection
right.
there.
So, and then this was after.
She's actually just a kid being an asshole. She's like, yeah, whatever, Ted. Like, my name's Craig. Sure, Ted.
Right.
Just intentionally calling you the wrong name.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And this was after Ryan had started working at the post office, and I was spending, every day with her. And I taught her how to call me dad, like call me daddy. And I was so happy. Like, it was such a beautiful little moment. And Ryan came home from work, and it was really fun. But yeah, when it came time, because we always talked about wanting to have other kids, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of the plan. And Maddie is my second daughter. And she, I'm trying to remember. Gwen is born in 99 and Maddie's in 2002. So that's 3 years apart, basically.
Wow. I'm just sorry. I'm still just caught up on 99 and 2000. And you're like,
right? Having kids then.
wow.
Yeah. So when Ryan and I got married, I was 20 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I got my license in 99.
Yeah. That's crazy, dude. Yeah. Yeah. My oldest daughter is born in 1999.
Right.
But we had Maddie. And so now I'm stay-at-home dad for two little girls. And it was, again, just like the coolest thing. We moved, we had an apartment for the first part of our relationship together. And then we moved into a house and bought a house together. And I mean, it was just like, I was full-time dad and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was, eventually I started doing part-time work outside of the home in the evenings and stuff when Ryan would get home because we needed the cash. And so that's where a lot of like waiting tables, and I did anything. Like, I delivered pizzas, I delivered newspapers, I worked at Arby's for a while. I was just,
We have the meats.
yeah, doing all sorts of different
A
stuff.
Jamocha shake.
They're good. But I got to stay home with these two little girls during the day, and eventually like Gwen starts going to kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so I get to do like the whole going in and reading with the class and
That's cool,
going
man.
on field trips. And I got to experience all of that stuff in like full like carpooling, taking the kids everywhere. We lived in a little cul-de-sac, and Gwen had a friend, across the street. And so it was a really beautiful kind of like time in my life. I just absolutely loved it. And I really love being a dad. I really, really love it. It's one of those things that, like we said, I always wanted to be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love being with my kids,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking back to that time period in my life, and oftentimes it's hard I do a lot of obviously reflective work and looking into the past and things, and it's usually mining for hard stuff and trauma. And, and this time period is also just riddled with chaos.
Yeah.
Like, it's this beautiful experience, but it's also countered with
Chaos.
just chaos.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Really, really difficult stuff in my life. And, but at the end of the day, I feel like I feel like I was a great dad, and I just had so much fun. I mean, it was the like dream experience for me as a dad. I just got to be with them all the time. I got to kind of go through the journey of watching all of it. Like, Maddie was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
She was, and it's terrible to articulate it that way, but she was very different than Gwen. And Maddie was very much like, she would not take no, like, she just would decide everything, and then that's how life would go. She definitely is. She has that ability. So she was a challenging baby, but not a bad baby. She just was very demanding.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I recognize it as attachment, and I see how much, I mean, that's a whole other podcast where it's like all the mistakes that we've made as parents, but
That's like a whole series of podcasts.
yeah, right. But when we had Maddie, Ryan obviously got maternity leave and everything.
Yeah.
And then it was time for her to go back, and she was breastfeeding. And when she went back, Maddie stopped eating.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had all the milk because Ryan would pump and everything. So we were totally prepped and ready for this scenario. And then Maddie was just not
like,
eating.
no.
She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not interested in whatever you're trying to do. But I'm
Not interested
hungry.
in what you're trying to sell me
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And
Funny,
it was
man.
horrible because it was like a month-long process of like
Ugh.
being with her for, sometimes Ryan would be gone for like 10, 12 hours
Yeah.
because, you know, when the post office doesn't really give a shit. So it was horrible. It was really, really hard and challenging during that time because I'd be home with her all day long and she would just be starving,
But wouldn't eat.
but wouldn't eat. And it was trying every bottle, every different type, everything I could possibly think of to try to get her to.
Just not interested.
Yeah. And then one day she did.
She was like, fine.
She finally.
So fucking hungry.
Right?
Just put something in my mouth.
Yeah. One day it finally worked. And then it was like we were golden. And then I had like a whole system because I never wanted to feed them formula.
Mm-hmm.
And so feed them. It's only Maddie. And so it was always breast milk. But I figured out how to because you can't microwave breast milk.
Yeah, breast milk. Yeah, it kills all the like proteins or whatever.
So I totally had a system with like freezing it and how to put it and store it and transport it and take hot water and warm it up. And I had all of these things figured out. So we were able to still kind of
do the stuff
and go out and about and do all these fun things. And
it's funny how like some of that stuff you're like, because you like, all right, you can't microwave breast milk. And you're like, well,
right.
What am I going to do here? Because you're storing breast milk. So, and you're probably freezing breast milk. And then it's like, all right, well, it thaws. And then I've got to warm this shit up. We had a portable like bottle steamer.
Yeah.
That like, because and I'll get into mine, but like just trying to like, hey, I'm here and I need to warm a bottle up right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things that we said originally. We're like, yeah, we're going to do this. And Lincoln never took a cold bottle.
Yeah.
Ever took a cold bottle. Nora, our second, was like, yeah, here you go. And just cold. She's like, it's good, Kate. I'm solid, team. You know, like cold bottle, no big deal. I was like, yeah, let's knock that shit off, right? Because I think you can help them along if they understand, right? But if you build those processes in, like, no, I only take warm milk, right? What is this?
Yeah.
You know, peasants.
Yeah.
Get this cold milk out of here.
So I wanted to talk about, because I've got 4 kids, but I was only present for one of their births.
Okay.
And that process, like, holy cow.
So obviously you weren't present for Gwen's birth.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie was your first child, like and
that I made.
That you made, right? I made that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had 2 others.
Yeah.
But you were only present like in the delivery room for one?
Yeah. For Maddie.
For Maddie. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, like, was there a reason why you weren't at the other ones? Like,
well, it's Stevie and Asher. It's Steph's kids.
Oh, well, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Idiot on my part for.
Yeah. I don't think I have any more kids out there, but I'm also not going to be surprised one day.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a solid conversation in my relationship.
Yeah.
I was like, listen.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's not going to be any 7-year-olds knocking on the door because we've been together going on 10 years, right? Like no 7-year-olds are knocking on the doors. That I'm positive about. But if a 14-year-old knocked on the door tomorrow, I'd be like, hey.
Right. Yeah, there's
interesting.
Yeah.
I've also covered my tracks really well, so.
Not me.
No, I use an alias also.
Yeah. Well, you're screwed now, Ben Tim, because you've got a podcast and you're all over the place, and so next thing you know, it's gonna be easy to find.
That's a solid. Yeah, but they're not looking for Ben Tim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're looking for Josh Dillon.
Josh Dillon.
Yeah, he's a guy I went to middle school with. Lived in the trailer park I did.
Okay, we digress.
I'm sorry.
These are completely different stories that I want to hear.
Yeah. Those are different stories.
Yeah. I remember when we found out that that Ryan was pregnant and we were going to have Maddie. And that was just like the most beautiful experience to get to like witness and watch. I thought it was fascinating. I was just blown away by like what took place with the female body, like what happens during that time period and all
crazy
the different changes. And because I didn't know any of that. And we would go to these birthing classes and, reading books and doing all of this stuff. Obviously, Ryan had already gone through the experience, but Gwen was, it's not to say Gwen was anything. It was, that was a really difficult pregnancy for her. And it was a really long, like it was 24 plus hours. And like, it was just this really horrendous experience. And so, but yeah, when Maddie came along, it was such a beautiful thing. And like that process of like watching your child grow inside of your wife, like it's crazy.
Yep.
Like I just remember, because the phase where they start to move, and
dude, it's creepy to watch.
It's so
like something just slide across the inside of flesh, and you're like, so bananas.
Yeah, such a weird experience, but also just like beautiful and like it's the coolest thing ever to sit and like be able to feel your child.
Moving around.
It's so cool. It's such a cool experience. But I went very much, I mean, I was very overprotective of Gwen, and that just like dialed up a couple of notches even more when it came time for like birthing and a baby and like pregnancy. There's so many problems. There's so many issues. There's so many things that could happen. So I was so stressed out and focused. And I was obsessed at the time. I remember we had an amazing doctor who was really, really cool. She was a great, great doctor. And I was obsessed with like, I need to know everything that I need to know so that if this happens on the side of the freeway, I can do it. Yeah. Right. I'm like, so I was so obsessed with that. I'm like, Doc, you got to tell me, like, what do I need to know? Just the bare essentials.
Like, how do I catch this thing?
Because I have no idea what's going to happen. Yeah. Dude, I remember being little, like as a child, and finally figuring, I used to think that babies came out of butts. I didn't realize that they were born the way that they're born.
This little shit kids.
I had no idea. And so I remember thinking that when I was little, and then I don't even remember when I figured it out or somebody told me or whatever. And I'm like,
you're like, they don't come out butts?
Right?
You're like, no. And you're like, huh.
I'm like, I don't understand what's going on.
The whole world has changed now.
This changes everything, people.
I've got to think about this and process.
And so I was so paranoid for that process of just
the baby
like,
coming out the butt.
but just all of it, right?
Yeah. It's a scary, because as much as, and I totally understand the fear side of that, right? Like, you're not in control. You really have very little input on what's going to happen. It's going to happen, right? And if, like, we're as men, for the most part, right, as some would also refer to us as non-birthing parents, right, depending on how you want to look at that. But as non-birthing parents, right, we're not in charge of shit.
Yeah.
We're literally like the assistant coach whose uncle is the actual coach.
Yeah, they're just letting you in the room.
Yeah, that's really all we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? If anything, like, we're there for like moral support for the mother, our wife, or girlfriend or whatever. But we're just there. And they're like, yeah, Dad, go stand right there, hold her hand, tell her she's doing a great job, right? That's really, if you wrote a book, what to expect when expecting for dads, right? We need to make it a really thick book, but it really just says like, hey man, bring snacks, right? Tell her she's doing a great job, right? And just get off your phone, right? The rest of the book's empty. Like, that's, hey, how do I do this? That's it, right? But it's crazy because you don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah. So I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the day comes and I got front row seats to watching my child come into this world. And it was...
You're like bumping the doctor on the way, like, let me watch.
I was just like, the way that it worked out, because, I literally was just watching all of it.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, it's insane.
It is insane.
To witness something like that happening. And it was such a beautiful experience. And I got to give Maddie her first bath and do all of that kind of like stuff that they let dads do. And then it was just like so crazy to have her and to hold her and to get to like, you know, the thing that was moving around inside of the belly and
is now here.
is now sitting there. And it was so cool. It was such a beautiful experience. She changed so many different things in so many wonderful ways.
Yeah.
And and then we had 2 kids, and life, you know, kept going.
There you go.
So
was Maddie a cute kid?
she was an adorable kid. Like
Really?
she was a fucking put her on the side of a Gerber bottle. Like she was adorable.
Yeah.
Like total Cabbage Patchy, chunky little cheeks and beautiful smile and great. Maddie's got 2 different colored eyes.
Oh, awesome.
She's got a green eye and a blue eye. And just a wonderful, wonderful kid. Very different. Like I was saying, very stubborn. I got really good at carrying her and holding her.
Yeah.
And so, because she didn't like to be put down.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that she would tolerate was this swing that we had. It was one of those swings that would go rather than front and back. It went side to side.
Yeah, dude.
And so I used that thing because when Ryan would be working and I'd be home all day, it was like,
and you got 2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to set one down.
I got so good at holding Maddie in my left arm like a football. I could cradle her so her head was
in your hand,
in my hand and up top, and then her feet are dangling off the side of my arm, right? And I would do everything like that.
Yeah.
Dishes, move around the whole house. Like I'd stand there and pee and wash my hands with one hand and all of these different things because I could just never set her down.
Just clap at people.
Right. And so I got really good at carrying her everywhere. And she was very strong-willed, and she still is. She very much decides that she's going to do something, and then we all just kind of have to get out of the way because she just is going to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, dude, it was beautiful. I mean, there's so many things of that time in my life and getting to spend so much time with them and all of those fun experiences and getting to like watch them grow up together. That was really fun. It was fun to watch Gwen get to have a little sister, you know, and get to experience that. And that was such a fun time period just to get to be witnessing all of it. And I remember, you know, I can, like we were saying earlier, that I can reflect back and remember all these good things about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also remember what it felt like. And I wish I would have been more present for all of it. You know, I wish I would have been more in it.
Yeah.
Rather than distracted with all the fucking shit that I was distracting myself with and all the stress and all those
what were the
things.
If you don't like, you say you wish you were more in it, and I'm just like, everything that you've explained to me so far seems like you were a bit into it, right? Like, you're talking about you learned how to wash a hand with its hand. You had one hand washing itself, right?
Yeah.
Just sitting there doing this, right? But like, how, like, what were the things that you were distracted by, or like what was going on that you feel like pulled you away from that?
It's a great question. And I mean, my issues are always issues with relationships. I always struggle immensely in relationships. I have so many different like issues in relationships. So that's where all the chaos is. Okay. Is in our relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So you were a younger family.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very much like literally up to that point in my life, I hadn't had a long-term relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. It just wasn't a thing. I think my longest relationship was maybe 6 months or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of examples, and I'm just navigating all of it to the best of my abilities. But it's also just crazy town.
Yeah. But,
and it's from the outside, it just looks normal, you know, and it is normal. That's kind of just the reality. That's kind of a time of life when relationships are hard.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, as you're explaining all this stuff, and I'm like, I mean, well, yeah, like, you guys are trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if I would go with like, you were doing everything that you could, right? It's not like you were like, yeah, it was just a crazy time. I had a real bad crack problem, right? Like, that's a different story,
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you were trying to figure out how to make it work with Ryan, right? You were trying to figure out like finances and how do I raise these children?
Yeah, so everything.
It's everything,
it's a
right?
mortgage, it's car payments.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out how to do life at the same time of, raising kids and being a dad.
So it's the first time that you've as trying to figure out how to adult.
Yeah.
Right. Plus you've got 2 kids, right? Like, yeah, nobody's set and squared away and all that, right? So I wouldn't.
Yeah, but you highlighting that, like what you're listening to and what you're hearing about how, these experiences that I'm sharing it, like you're right. I was very much in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I just wish I could have appreciated it more, but the truth of it is, I appreciate it now.
Yeah.
I can look back on it so fondly. There was, like I said, there's just so many fun memories. There was, Gwen was, I don't remember what grade she was in. She was in elementary school and she had a book report on, she had to do like a report on a bird. And so we picked a killdeer. Do you know what type of bird that is? Have you ever heard of it?
A kill,
like exactly how it sounds. Killdeer.
Killdeer.
Have you ever heard of that?
Is it a big bird?
It's not. It's a little bird. And,
are they just devious?
Well, they have a distinct call, and literally killdeer. Kind of. That's kind of where they got their name from. And we got to learn all about them. It was such a cool experience to just have because I had to help her write the book report.
Yeah.
And the reason we picked the bird is because turned out that it was one that we would see all the time. So we had got to go out and watch them and observe them and take pictures of them so that she had that stuff for her report and everything like that. And they do this cool thing where they lay their eggs on the ground. And if people get close to their eggs, they will make a ton of sound and look injured, like 20 feet over to the side. So next thing you know, you see this bird flopping around totally looking like it's injured because it's trying to draw away
from the nest.
Eggs. And as soon as you start walking towards it, it gets up and flies away. It's like, and tries to keep your attention. And will go a little bit further down and make a bunch of noise. And
that's a cool idea.
Kind of do a little half flop. And so she got to watch and witness all of these things that we would read about. So it was just this moment is like those experiences of getting to help with book reports and getting to teach them how to ride their bike and getting to, all of these first experiences, all of these beautiful moments on top of Maddie fell down the stairs and I don't think she chipped. I think she did because it was a baby tooth that she eventually lost, but chipped her tooth.
Okay.
And, Gwen fell off the bed once and broke her clavicle. And it was horrendous because I was a stay-at-home dad. So I had to do all of this stuff by myself.
Happened on your watch.
Yeah. And so take her to the hospital and they had to do x-rays. And in order for her to get a good x-ray so that they could see what was going on, I had to hold her down flat on the x-ray table.
Yeah.
So because she was in so much pain from the clavicle, but they needed that part of the body to
be extended a little bit. Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there holding my little girl
and
as
she's crying,
screaming in pain.
Ugh.
Right.
That's hard.
It was horrible.
That's horrible.
Right. Because the times when they're in pain and you can't do anything about it, fuck, dude.
Yeah, it's rough.
Right. And that feeling, that sensation alone is the thing that, at least for me, it's I'm still carrying it. Your children are in pain all the time. Yeah. And you can't do anything about it.
Nope.
And it's the same thing today. I think about all 4 of my kids and the things that they're going through. Yeah. I had a beautiful phone call with Maddie, probably 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. And she's navigating life, right? Yeah. She's 22 years old. And, let's see. She's born in 2002. So that make her 22 this year. And, she's just in it. She's trying to go through different aspects of life that are really challenging and really hard. And just to sit and not be able to do anything about it. Yeah. I hate it. Yeah. I hate when my kids are in pain and suffering and going through stuff. But that's the reality of being a parent, where I think there's so much that we think there's a lot. I used to think that I could, fix everything. There wasn't, like, if my kids were hurt, I'll take care of it
make
all
it better
and take care of everything,
Yeah.
right? And to realize slowly over the time as they continue to grow up in all of these different experiences that continually just happen with life, right?
Yeah.
Life begins to start to unfold, and you realize slowly that, like, that thing gets taken away where you think you can fix it and solve it and that it's all going to be okay. And you just can't.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things get bigger and bigger, and you're just like, I can't do anything, At least that's what it feels like.
I agree. It does feel that way. Like when you're watching them and you're like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
I wish there was something I could do.
You just got to go through it.
There's not, right?
So let's go back. I want to go back to, when did you find out that you were going to be a dad? Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite stories. Jamie and I had only been dating for 6 months.
Sorry, real quick.
Yep.
I'm also going to talk about my other kids. Like,
yeah.
There's another phase of, like, fatherhood that comes, and that's,
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So, we had only been dating like 6 months. In fact, we were at our 6-month anniversary. We were at a place in San Diego called Sushi Deli 3. Shout out to Sushi Deli 3. I love you guys. Anytime I go back, I go there. Bring back the scallop dynamite, though, please. It was the best. So we're there. We're celebrating. Hey, we've been dating for 6 months. And we had some adventures. We had gone to, like, Vegas for a weekend. Saw, like, the guy that was my, like, drug dealer in college and hung out. She just met my family a little bit. Like, we had done the CrossFit games with my mom that summer. We went camping in Yosemite. So we had done.
That's a lot in 6 months.
Yeah. We had some cool opportunities to do some things. She was with me while we were supposed to go to Hawaii together, but I had to go to rehab. So the Marine Corps said I had a drinking problem. Understandable. So we had been together for 6 months, and
by the way, that's a side note that, like, put a pin in that, because I want to hear all about that. Not on this episode, but
rehab.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah. I want to hear all about it.
Listen, I totally don't belong in rehab, but the Marine Corps is like, we're going to send you there, and I was like, oh man, you guys all have problems.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, so. We're hanging out. We're celebrating our 6-month anniversary, and we're sitting there. She comes over. She sits next to me. We take some selfies on our phone, right? And she goes and sits across the table, and we're sitting there. We're waiting for our food to come out, having a beer. And I was like, "Hey, let me see." And she hands me her phone, and I, like, look at it. I scroll, and it's a picture of a pregnancy test. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's that? And I show it to her. She grabs the phone out of my hand. She's like, it's somebody else's. I can't tell you who, And I'm like, all right, cool. And so I'm like, all right. So I look down and I look at my beer for a minute. And I'm kind of thinking, and I'm like, well, if somebody sent you this, why did you save it to your phone? So I kind of look up and I look over at Jamie, and I was like, is it yours? And I shit you not, Jamie's doing this. Just pounding the beer because she doesn't want to answer my question, and she's like, it is mine. And I was like, it's okay, like, I'm not mad, or like
right.
Okay. I was like, come here, like, we're gonna get through this, it's gonna be okay. And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. She finally kind of calms down a little bit, and she's like, I was like, well, let's make a doctor's appointment. Right. And go because it's just a pregnancy test, like false positives. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go find out. Right. She's like, all right. And so it's September 21st.
Okay.
Next day is, I think it's like a Saturday. Right. Next day is a Sunday. And she's like, hey, like, they're going to see me on whatever day it was. But she's like, hey, they're going to see me in 2 weeks. And I was like, no. Like, we're not waiting 2 weeks to find out if you're actually pregnant. Like, let's find out. Like, just call them back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they'll get you in. And she's like, okay. She calls me back. She's like, yeah, they're going to see me tomorrow. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So I go in, and it's my last day in the Marine Corps. And so September 23rd, I am getting my DD-214. I am like no longer an active duty. Hey, your time in service is over. And I'm like, all right, I am literally in my squadron saying my final goodbyes before I leave base for the last time as an active duty Marine. And Jamie calls me, and she just called, and I was like, hey, babe. And she's like, hey, I am pregnant. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm about to leave. Why don't we, are you gonna leave work? She's like, yeah, I think. And I was like, all right, well, I'll see you at the house, like in my apartment or whatever, right? She's like, okay. I hang up the phone. I was like, well, I'm gonna be a dad, right? So I'm looking at all these guys I've served with, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a dad. And I was like, and I am now unemployed. I have no insurance. I have really no money, and I have no idea what I'm gonna do with my life. And I just found out I'm gonna be a dad. And I was like, cool. So let's figure this out, right? And I was I was really excited. I had wanted to be a dad for a long time. At that point, because I was much older, right? I mean, I was 20, was I 30?
How old's Lincoln?
Lincoln's 9. Yeah, I was 30, right? So I was 30 years old. At that point, I'd been married a couple times, twice before, right? Had no kids. Had a close call once, and that didn't end up being a baby. And through that whole process, I had just kind of at this point almost given up, right? Like I had joked about it with people. It's like, I'm just going to go get a vasectomy, and because I don't want to deal with I'm 40 and I randomly got some girl pregnant who I met at a bar or something like that. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd rather just go get fixed and just be like, yeah, this is off the table, right? Not a big deal. Maybe I'll go freeze some assets later, in case. And in all honesty, I was not out there looking for wife number 3.
Yeah.
Right? Like that wasn't my intention. I was dating. I had a pretty consistent process of dating people for like 3 to 9 months, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like, all right. And then eventually be like, yeah, I'm over this, like whatever. So I was like, all right, cool. I knew that I loved Jamie. Like I knew it almost from the moment that we first hung out. I was like, oh, hell, you're an intelligent, attractive, like funny, just wonderful woman that I can just be around, right?
Yeah.
I had never, ever felt that connection with another woman before. And so I was really excited. And Jamie it was not what she had planned for. And Jamie, when things don't go the way that Jamie has planned, it's a little harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really did everything I could to just be supportive. I was like, hey, I'm here with you. Like, however we decide to move forward from here and I'm with you on these decisions, right? And we're going to get through this. Like, it's going to be okay.
I think it's really fascinating that they happened like that. Like, it's so clear, at least from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's so clear how like this thing that is ending, which has been, a decade of your life, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that has to clear out.
100%. We literally have to like close this chapter.
Yes.
To make this happen.
Exactly.
100%. It was, to experience that literally like,
it's a little bit different.
It's literally like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was
life will do that, dude.
Oh man, it totally will. It'll just especially when you're like, and I was kind of like, okay, getting out of the Marine Corps, I was like, I had a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot. I was like, all right, I was lucky. It was the time in the world where unemployment was, Obama had like totally like thrown it out like, oh yeah, like we're double paying, and like it was was 2014. So there was lots of money out there for unemployment. And I already had like, hey, I'm going to get unemployment because I'm not in the Marine Corps anymore. I'll go to school. I'll get a degree. I'll be a billionaire. That's pretty much how this works, right?
Got it all figured out.
And I was so scared and I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. So Jamie, I sat down and talked. Now, Jamie, obviously, like, I don't know if we've gone over this. Like, Jamie's a director at a software company, project manager, manages a vast amount of the revenue the company does, was doing well for a 31, 32-year-old woman, right?
Yeah.
And I'm over here unemployed, former Marine. Got 3 days of a beard growth going. And she was like, yeah, why don't you just be the stay-at-home dad? Because that was always what I joked about doing. Like, what are you going to do when you get out of the Marine Corps? I'm going to find some, like, beautiful woman and knock her up, and I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm going to be a capped man, a house husband, right? Like, it'll be great.
Be careful what you...
man, 100%. And she's like, yeah, why don't you just do that? I was like, okay. So I went through... There's no... lost to me how fortunate we have been in a lot of things. We were trying to find a place to live. I lived in this like second story kind of like mother-in-law suite. It was above the garage behind the house. I think it was a 700 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. Shit you not, the kitchen and the living room were smaller than this room combined.
Wow.
It was, so small, right? And it was this itty bitty tiny house or tiny apartment. And I knew the guy really well. I'd been there for like a year and a half, and the family that was in the front house was moving out. And I was like, hey, I'm interested. Can I rent that space? And he was like, yeah, that'd be great. So we literally didn't even have to do an application on that. I literally just moved my stuff from that apartment 50 feet to the front house.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, this is great. So got to do that. We had a place to live. Jamie's sister actually moved in with us because she needed a place to live. And I went through the whole nesting phase. Like, I painted Lincoln's room. I like full on like blue skies, grass borders. I put like a chalkboard, like road through the whole thing, cars and motorcycles and trucks. And we went shopping, and Jamie really just kind of took care of me, right? Like, it's funny because I don't ever remember this, but she went back and we've talked about it since. And she's like, Ben's unemployed, like trying to do anything he can. And is literally like I never asked for $1, right? I was never like, hey, I don't have any money, like she paid for most of the bills, but like I still tried to like fork up my half the rent, and I didn't have any money. So I was just selling stuff. I was like, yeah, I've got tools, and I was just selling tools and motorcycle parts and anything I could come up with to make some money. I cashed out my retirement plan that I had gotten from the Marine Corps. I was like, yeah, my 401k, basically I cashed that out to live on because I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And I did some work here and there, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, just stay home and we'll just take care of this. I was like, all right. And
do you think that, I don't want to sidetrack you here, but do you think that, because you also just got out of the Marines.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you've got a son on the way. You've got this child coming, right, that you're preparing for. But like I think about like almost like the grieving process
100%.
That has to take place,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So the stuff that you're navigating on top of like all the other shit that came with the Marines, right? The baggage from that experience. So it's like what's happening. You definitely kind of just funk during that time period, right?
100%. I extremely depressed.
Yeah.
Jamie would call me and she'd be like, you have to get out of bed. And I'd be like, why? Before we had like moved and before like when she was that first few months after, it was really hard for me and I tried everything. I was still going to therapy really consistently. I was on dozens of medications trying to, from like mini Prez and Neurontin and Zoloft and these antidepressants, and I hated all of it. It just was miserable. And I finally stopped. I was like, I'm not taking this shit anymore. It's all garbage. I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was very accommodating with like, no, like, this has been a big switch. Why don't you like take some time and like calm down?
Yeah, just super cool of her, man.
Yeah, super cool of her. She's the best. And got to go through all that. But it was so funny because I was lucky enough. I had two sisters that are younger than me. Both already had kids. The one that I'm the closest with, who lived in California, I was there when I wasn't there, but I mean, like, I was around with her children. So I had changed diapers. I had fed babies. I had held babies. I had, done all these things. And Jamie didn't nearly have as the same experience to that. She had one sister who we were at the hospital when she delivered, and we knew that Jamie was pregnant, and she hadn't told anybody yet.
Okay.
Right? I think, right? She might have told one of her sisters or something like that. But like, we were sitting there in the hotel or in the like hospital, and she was pregnant and going through this whole process. And that was the only child that was really in Jamie's family. So it was a relatively new experience, but we got to go through that. And I remember, like, I was just pumped. I was like, this is going to be great. We're going to do stuff. And we made it a point not to really try to change who we were. Like, we did so many dumb things. We went to like the CrossFit games. So Link was born in May, and in July we went to the CrossFit games in Carson, LA. So it's 105. We're miserable. Jamie's like,
perfect environment for a newborn.
It was terrible. Like, we've got fans on him because it's so hot. We're trying to keep him cool. Jamie's like pumping and breastfeeding all over the place, and we're like, we're still cool, right?
We could still do this.
We can still totally do this. We left early on Sunday. Like, we didn't even stay for the finals. We were like, no, like, this is stupid. And then, yeah, we went through the whole process, but same thing, like, stay-at-home dad, like, took Lincoln everywhere with me. We started the gym with Lincoln I think Lincoln was born in May. I think we started our build out like August 7th or something.
Okay.
So literally Lincoln is in a car seat, and I would like lay a dozen mats down, like horse stall mats for like our gym. We'd start like, we're putting together a business. I'd lay a couple of those down and then be like, hey bud. And I'd like warm up a bottle with the bottle steamer and like rock him for a while and hang out with him and be like, all right, go put a couple more mats down. And like, that was our day-to-day process. And I took him everywhere, and Jamie was, back to work, and we really got this really just cool opportunity to just spend all day together. And we just got to do things. I used to take like random photos. Like, I have these pictures of Lincoln when like just hanging out, and he'd be and he'd be like, have his dukes up, and I'd be like, take a picture and be like, Lincoln's ready to fight, just doing fun things.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the crap out of that time. And it was so fun to just be there with him and to see stuff. I also did a terrible, like, he fell out of the swing once. All kinds of like, stuff like that. Like,
there was one time Gwen took a header off of the slide because there was a little playground out of the apartment complex, right? And she's at the top of it, and she goes from standing to kneeling, and then as she's trying to flip her feet out in front of her to go down the slide, she just tips over, and she doesn't fall down the slide. She tips over and falls off the edge of the slide.
Oh God!
And just goes head first. And it's it's 8 feet or something up or something, but
it's not the slides that we grew up with.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
It's not
the 14-foot metal slide that has got one pole holding.
And it was definitely onto wood chips. And but at the time it was just like, But there's so many of those moments, man.
Oh yeah. But it was super cool. And then, when we found out that we were having Nora, it had changed a little bit by then, because like the gym was up and running. We started making plans for like childcare and stuff like that. But it it was super fun. I mean, going through delivery and stuff like that was crazy and just difficult. Like at one, Lincoln's like his heart rate kept dropping, so they were gonna like move him in for like an emergency C-section. Yeah. And like, so they like, everybody gowned up and like, cool, we're going. And everybody, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then like, they're like, hang on a minute, we're not sure yet. So I'm like, so I had to sit in this like surgical waiting room for a minute while my wife's behind closed doors. And I'm like, what do you guys do? Or not even my wife, my girlfriend, and who's pregnant with my child. And I'm like, what's going on? And her like epidural failed. And then she was super inflamed, so like she was fully dilated, but there was a lot of inflammation, and so it was hard. They were using like the suction cup trying to pull Lincoln out, and his head got all funky looking, and he was a creepy looking baby.
Really,
he looked like, dude, we have a photo of like the first picture that we took of him. He looks like a fucking alien. Like he's straight up. His head is like 17 inches this way. He looks like a Incan like alien.
Yeah, man.
And he's like,
we just want to pause real quick and thank you for tuning in and listening to Brave Men Dare. We'd like to ask you to do 3 simple things for us. First and foremost, just subscribe wherever you're listening, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other places you can find podcasts. By subscribing, you're going to help the podcast reach more people. Also, feel free to rate the show. Give us 5 stars if you're enjoying it. And last but not least, send an episode to a friend. All of these things are going to help the podcast reach more people and help us continue to bring you episodes week after week. Be sure to come follow us on social media as well. You can find us everywhere by searching Brave Men Dare. Now let's get back to the episode.
His eyes are all big, and I'll show you the picture. Like he 100% looks like an alien. And I remember he looks like an alien, and then I was also like, because I was just looking at it, I was like, man, this kid's balls are giant, right? I was just saying like the inappropriate dad things and whatnot, but yeah, it was super fun. And
do you remember the first time you held him?
Oh yeah, I mean, like literally just right from there, and they're like, Jamie got him, and then I got to hold him, and just sitting there and looking at him, and that like, what's up, dude? Like, hey man, like right. I'm your dad, right? I can't wait to teach you all kinds of cool stuff, and we're gonna have some adventures together, and we're gonna do some fun things.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, that's for me what I have looked forward to the most, and I look forward to the most still, is I can't wait to teach my kids all the stuff that I know, to see what they're interested in, and I don't know, because I know that kids do this, like, is when, like, Lincoln, he was like, hey, can we go shooting? And I'm like, yeah, but we can go shooting, right? And sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes like, yeah, we can do that, and then it doesn't work out. I'm like, I was like, yeah, we'll go shooting later today, and then it rains, and I'm like, sorry, man. I can't tell if he just wants to go shooting, or if he's like, hey, I want to go shooting because I know it'll be you and me hanging out, right? But teaching them stuff, I love, just trying to get them as prepared for life as possible. Like, that's really at the end of the day, and I've said this to them, right? Like, listen, I have a job. My job at the end of the day is twofold. One, I need to help prepare you to the best of my ability for what the world is, so you're ready.
Yeah.
The second thing I need to do is make sure you're not an asshole, right? To the best of my ability. Like, if I do everything I can and 30 years from now you turn out to be a real jerk, like, I tried, right? I did my best. But those are my 2 jobs. And like, I want to be your friend. I want to be somebody, your confidant, and somebody that you can always talk to about things and stuff like that. But if I had to choose between, I've got a child, a son, a daughter who's 100% prepared for everything that the world's going to throw at them, and they're not going to be an asshole, but they think I'm kind of a jerk, like, I could probably deal with that, right? Like, yeah, you don't like me, but guess what? Like, you're out here killing it,
yeah, and
you're doing great things, and you're hitting all your dreams and all that stuff. Like, I'm okay.
It's a win as a dad.
It's a win as a dad. I definitely am want to be their friends and all that, but at the same time, like I need to help them understand the lessons of what life is.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance right there.
Yeah, it's the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to like it's kids are just hilarious too. You look at them, you're like, listen, idiot. Like, I know what you're saying. Like, I've been where you are.
Right.
Like, you're not gonna. Lincoln gets on me. He comes home. He's got all these little joke cards, and he'll ask me the question, and we're like, "Hey," he's like, "What's And it's some play on word kind of joke or whatever, and I'll be like, and I'll think about it for a minute, and I'll know the answer, and he'd be like, "How do you know this stuff?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, I've been hearing jokes like this for 40 fucking years, right?" I was like, there's a good chance I've heard this joke,
Right.
Second of all, like it's a play on words. Right. So you just think about it for a minute.
Those little Laffy Taffy jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And he's just like, how do you know it though? And I'm like, yeah, you'll one day you'll know it. Right. And
yeah, it's so fun watching them come alive.
Yeah.
Like there's that part of our friends, Michael and Scarlett, right? Their little girl.
Yeah.
Like last time that we were over there playing poker and everything, just watching them totally interacting with the world as if it's like, it's like everything's new, everything's exciting, everything's fresh, right? They start to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch them start to put pieces together and figure things out and kind of interact with the world around them as this autonomous thing, it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like that growth period from newborn to 2 years old.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens.
Yeah. Because they learn so much about their environments and some of it's funny.
Oh yeah.
Like I watched Nora bite her finger 100 times to the point that she made herself cry. She was like, ah, and I was like, ah, and I'm like watching, like, what are you doing? If you do that, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, don't do that. And then like, yep, you're just gonna hurt yourself more, you silly goose.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's this part of like, we were talking a little bit about it yesterday when we were on the phone and you were taking a shit. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
And
just thinking about you, bud.
You're going through this process where when they go into like adolescent and teenage years, it is such an exciting time to be a parent. It really becomes a whole new skill set, like a whole new level of parenting starts to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer, that's when they start to push back.
It's like prestige mode.
Mm-hmm. It's because they start to become like really autonomous and also really questioning like everything. I think about it. I didn't have too much awareness of it when all of my kids were going through it. I did with like Asher, because
you had some experience.
Yeah. Like when Steph and I met, her two kids, Stevie and Asher was 6 years old and Stevie was 10, 9 or 10 years old. And so I've had them ever since then. Yeah. And so I've had, Asher's 18 now. So I got to experience this phase of life with him where they start to push back, and it's like this whole thing that's happening because their brain is still developing, and it's like a huge growth spurt time period and all these hormones and all of these things, but they really start to re-question everything. And so they start to look at life and they're like, why is stuff this way? Like dad says I got to go to bed. I remember being that age and like my dad being like, it's bedtime. It's 9 o'clock, go to bed. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, why? I'm not tired. I don't need to go to bed. Like just because you say it's tired, time for
why
bed,
do I have to do
right?
that? Yeah.
But it's kind of that time frame where they start to re-question everything. And as a parent, it's so hard, dude, because it just becomes a battle. At least that's the part of the experience,
it's
right?
100% a battle.
Yeah. And
I get it from like their aspect. They're like you don't know any better, right? Like you want to, and I think this is what happens is like the dynamic between like as a child, a toddler, like you make 99% of the decisions for them, right?
Yeah.
And as they grow up, the older they get, the less and less decisions you make, right? So you know that, like right now for my kids, right? Like we don't necessarily decide what they wear, right? A couple years ago, I was like, no, I walked in there and dressed Nora, right? Literally, I mean, 2 years ago, like, no, you were 4.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do this. And now it's like, all right, no, hey, go get dressed. And they come out, I'm like, do you have underwear on? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you do? No, I don't. I'm like, go put underwear on, right? Like, why are we not putting underwear on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm like, I understand. This is where, like, you look at me like, maybe I took that decision. Maybe I gave you that decision too early, right? Maybe you're not ready for this one yet. And you're like, hey, it's cold out. Go take the basketball shorts off. Put on some pants. And you're like, I don't want to. I'm like, you'll be cold. And I mean, at the same point, I'm also the first parent to be like, okay, you're gonna learn.
Yeah, natural consequences.
Yeah, natural consequence. You're gonna figure out why I was telling you to put pants on.
Right.
Right. And Jamie's like, no, just make him go put pants on. I was like, listen, there's 2 ways to learn
kids
things.
run hotter too. Because I remember being little, being like, whatever, I'm fine.
I think that's a personal thing. Because Nora runs real warm.
Yeah.
Like I do. Lincoln, we have a problem with Lincoln. He takes all his like shirt, puts it over his knees and sucks his arms in to like turn himself into a ball. I'm like, first of all, you're fucking up that shirt, right? That's not how we wear it. Like if you're cold, you should have listened to me and put fucking pants on, right? But you didn't.
Yeah.
Idiot, you know? So, but I think as they get older, they want to make all their own, they want to start making more of their own decisions. And they have the capacity and the want to make the decisions, but maybe not the wisdom to know the right way to make these decisions, right? And you look at them and you're like, I mean, is that what you want to do there?
Right.
Right.
It's such a good way to put it where, you know, up until this time frame that we're kind of talking about when they 10, 11, 12, like that's that transition from childhood into the teenage years. We make all the decisions, all of them. And then from that point on, it just slowly becomes this process of making less and less and less of those decisions for them until they're making all of their decisions. Yeah. And that's the spot that we're at with Asher right now because he's 18.
He's 18.
And it's like...
I'm an adult.
Yeah.
I don't need to listen to you.
And it's like, I forget how hard that transition is because we went through it with all of them. And it's so freaking hard because you have to just let them make the worst decisions in the world, at least from your seat, right? From your perspective where you're sitting and watching, you're like, well, this is a train wreck.
Yeah. And you're like...
And you're doubling down on that? Like, you got to...
Sure?
Right?
Let's walk through this real quick. I just want to make sure that I understand your thought process behind this. And they're like, thought process? What do you mean?
Yeah, it's so hard to watch.
Yeah.
And they all do it, you know, and they're like, it's kind of the game at this point, especially with our older ones where we don't have a say in anything that they do, obviously, as it should be, right?
Yeah.
I don't want them to be like, what do you guys think? Obviously come to us for advice and see what we think, but you know, they're not making decisions based off of what we think.
And I mean, and there is also, I think, the difference in, so of the 4, Asher is the only one that lives with you still, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember when I was like 17, 18, like, I was making a lot of my own decisions, and I made a decision that was against what my mother had decided for, what was acceptable, and I didn't sleep in the house that night. Like, she was like, okay, you're a big man, you want to make your own decision, not listen to me, that's fine. I'm my house, right? And I slept in my truck. And she was just like, yeah, that's the causality that you're going to figure out here in a little while, right? But when you move out, that's a huge difference there, right? When you're like...
Yeah, it sucks when you got to make all the decisions. Oof. Yeah.
There's...
I hate having to make all the decisions.
Right? It's so tough. Do you ever like, this is not off topic, but with that, like, I look at you, I'm like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I don't know, what do you want to do? I'm like, fuck.
Right.
I'm like, I was hoping you'd just direct me at this point so I didn't have to make any decisions on this. Like, can I have my decision powers? Like, can I just hang those up on the coat rack for a while?
Yeah.
You just want to point it and tell me to go that way. I'm totally down with it.
Totally down for it.
Yeah. Like, I just want to exist.
I want to go back and talk a little bit more about, because when Steph and I got together, we blended our families together.
Yeah.
And there's a part of that was like, I mean, it's what I find really fascinating for myself is I've got to experience a lot of different aspects of being a dad.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, really cool. I didn't have, like, that wasn't my plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way that I'm a dad today, like, it's not how I envisioned being a dad. And I don't mean like, do you know what I mean? But like my dad journey, my experience of being a dad, it's not what I had pictured.
Yeah.
You know, I obviously pictured like I'd get married and have kids with the same woman and all of these things and all of that kind of stuff. And life just unfolded very differently for me. But I love that I've had the opportunity to have all these different kind of
experiences.
Yeah, versions of what it is to be a dad. And they all come with all of these different fucking weird, hard, beautiful experiences. You know, like the difference between I hate the label, I hate thinking of myself as a stepdad, but I mean, that's what I am to Stevie and Asher, even though I adopted Asher back in 2019. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was.
Okay. So it was like, what's that, like 14, 15, 13?
How old he was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was 13 or 14 years old. But that was a whole journey and a whole process and everything like that. I want to share that story too. But it's like getting to experience all these different versions of what it is to be a dad has been really awesome.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, obviously there's the challenging parts of it all and stuff, but by and large, it's just been really beautiful and really awesome to experience it.
Isn't the challenging parts of that what makes it the difference, right? Like I don't think that the measurement of it is the end goal or it's the obstacles that had to be overcome in each one of those different scenarios. With Gwen, you know, very young, came into, I don't know if she had, no biological, no male. Yeah. So like that was,
I'm dad from day one.
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. You're maybe the first person she ever referred to as dad. Right. So like, that's one aspect. Right. Yeah. And then you have, Maddie. That's So Maddie, like, again, your child, right?
Yeah.
And full experience on all that. And then you get Stevie and Asher, different ages, right? So you've got this 10-year-old teenager, preteen kind of, and then Asher, and like those are four 100% different experiences where those are all different, right? And they all have their own, and even the difference between Stevie and Asher, boy and girl, right?
Yeah, Asher's my first son.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's been really interesting to watch the journey of that unfold because, I mean, I'm a really good dad to girls. Like I'm a good girl dad.
Yeah.
I know how to raise girls.
We've done it 3 times.
Yeah. And that's like I feel really natural in that space.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I have a son. And navigating that relationship has just
because they're different.
It's so different, dude.
Yeah,
I can't believe how much it has been. Like it's been so challenging for me to navigate that relationship because it challenges so much of what it is. Like it brings up all the dad shit that I have with my dad.
Yeah,
and it puts me in all of these weird, awkward, you know, emotional states and places that I didn't ever go to and experience with my girls. And trying to figure that out has just been like a nightmare at times. Yeah. It's so hard.
I as much as, so like when Jamie was pregnant, I was like, cool, we're going to have a boy. And before we ever knew, she's like, you can't say that. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, what if it's not a boy? I was like, totally. I was like, I'm going to love any baby that comes out. Like it's going to be my child. I'm going to love that child no matter what. I believe it'll be a boy, and I'm very excited about that. But as much as like, yes, they're both your son and daughters, right? Like my son and daughter, like, yeah, they're different, right?
Yeah.
They're both my children. I love them. I can't say that I love one more than the other one or anything like that. They're different relationships, right? Not unfortunately, but like that's not the right word. The challenging aspect is, so for like Lincoln is a male. He's my son, but he's much more like his mother, right? In a lot of aspects. Nora is my daughter, and she is much more like me, and it creates different challenges, right?
Yeah,
like
man, those dynamics.
the dynamics are all super hard to like align, where I am constantly like, me and Lincoln talk about honor, and we talk about responsibilities, and we talk about our principles, and we talk about the golden rules, and like we really, because I feel like I also have a bit of a responsibility that I believe, and I don't know because Lincoln's only 9, but there's a good chance that Lincoln's going to be like 5'8", 5'9",
Yeah.
230 pounds of just
Trouble.
Yeah, 100%.
Dude,
like,
that boy's been in jiu-jitsu. Like,
oh yeah,
he's going to be trouble.
Oh yeah, there's no.
I'm so excited to get to watch testosterone.
Oh, dude, as soon as that kid hits a little bit of puberty, because
Right?
he looks just like I did at his age. He's this gangly, like his wrists are as big as Jamie's, though, right? His knees are bigger than Jamie's. Like, he's got these giant joints and body, and his bones are thick, and he's got a hard head, and he's just kind of like,
Right.
And he knows jujitsu, which is going to be a huge differentiation different. Different changer in his growing up. But there'll be a day when I'm terrified of it, when he's gonna be like, "No, old man,"
Right?
Yeah, and I'll be like, "I'll be right back. Go get a gun. Sit down." You might be able to kick my ass. I'll still shoot you.
Yeah.
But it'll be different, like that. Teaching. So I need to make sure that Lincoln understands this stuff, right? So I really focus a lot with Lincoln on making sure that he understands like how we treat other people and what the right thing is.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know I've talked about, like, we don't put our hands on women. Right. And to the point that me and him had a conversation, I was like, here's the deal, man. I was like, we don't do this. I was like, and we don't let that happen around us. I was like, if I ever see somebody do that, I was like, I instantaneously like, yeah, I'm in the middle of this. And I've had people and girlfriends and ex-wives and stuff like that be like, it's not our fight. I'm like, it happened in my presence. I'm as much part of this as they are. And I'm going to have a conversation with the gentleman about how we, represent ourselves in the world. But I need him to understand that. It's super important to me that he gets that stuff. Nor I don't have to necessarily talk about like, hey, we don't hit boys, right? Like, hey, don't hit people in general. But Nora's probably going to have to figure all that shit out on her own, because she's probably going to go to jail at some point for, a bar fight. Yeah. I don't know. I'm super concerned about her.
Yeah. It's fun to watch like we were talking earlier about their character kind of start to take shape when they start to put the pieces together in the world.
Yeah.
And then like, as they're teenagers and they start to like to see who they start to become in the world, like that's just a whole other level of joy and happiness and fear and anxiety. It's kind of the same thing when they start walking and you're like, oh, they're going to fall, and like Maddie fell down the stairs and broke her tooth. Like you have to just know that something like this is going to happen. But then to watch them start to go out into the world and start to experience the world and interact with the world and who they kind of take shape and become, it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to witness. And like all of these things, I think, by and large, the big thing with parenting is it's the most beautiful experience and the hardest experience. It's just the polarities between the things, right? You'll get the full emotional spectrum on any given day as a parent. Yeah. Where you're going to experience some of the best things in the world that open up your heart and make you realize that love is a thing, and like the way that love changed for me when I became a parent. I felt like I understood something that I had only previously, thought, like everything changed where
Yeah.
you're like, oh, now I know what it means to love somebody.
Yep.
And that love for my children had been a huge driving factor behind all of my decision making and the path that I've walked since I've had them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Is just the love that I have for them. It changed everything.
Yeah.
And with it comes immense pain, like just the most difficult suffering that you could ever kind of imagine. Like I thought I knew what pain was, and then I became a dad.
Yeah. Ooh, that is a solid line right there. Because, all the way up to the moment before you're a dad,
Yeah.
you're everything in the world. It's just on you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even in a relationship, right? Like when I was married before and things in the world changed, and it was still just, how does this really affect me, right?
Yeah.
Now that could have been just how shitty that relationship was, but it's not. It's really just me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the moment you become a father, it's not a concern anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's, how does this affect my children?
Yep.
How does, where is this going to go from here? And there are things that go on in the world that you're like, shit, like, what are we going to do with this? Right.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are things you're like, all right, well, this is apparently a thing that I never had to navigate. Right. But now we have to navigate. And how do we talk about that and make sure that they understand? And some of the things that we talk about and teach and they learn now will be kind of core beliefs for the rest of their lives. And it's one of those things that you're like, well, what if things change?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they say it's like the first 6 or 7 years is basically what forms us.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever takes place in that first 6 or 7 years of your life, basically that's not who you are. Like, I don't think it's that simplified, but that first chunk of life is what kind of dictates the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever took place during that time period is kind of what you're going to be in one way or another working through the rest of your life and trying to heal and process through. And I mean, if you had a beautiful time period in that first 6 or 7 years, then, you turn out securely attached and everything's wonderful and great. I didn't give that to my kids.
Yeah.
None of my kids have had a beautiful 6 or 7 years in the beginning of their life. All of them have had turmoil and trauma and,
Struggles.
stuff.
Yeah.
And you get to watch that happen, like I said, Gwen's 25 years old now and she's married and gone through all of these different phases of life. And it's so beautiful to watch them navigate all of that. But time and time and time again, I have to remind myself that what I thought what I thought their life was going to be, it's not necessarily their life has turned out differently than I thought it was going to, but my relationship with it is different. So like Gwen got married in Scotland and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
It happened during the lockdown and they got the opportunity to go there for like the last part of her college.
Yeah.
She did this trade program and she got to go to the University of Glasgow for a semester. So it was this really cool experience for her and it was awesome. And her boyfriend, as well as Maddie, went with her. So they got this cool experience. And when they were there, they got married. They had somebody come to the house and do the whole thing. And so they had this ceremony that I wasn't there for. And that was just like horrible.
Yeah.
From, this perspective, because I totally had this vision where one day I'm going to get the opportunity to
walk her down the aisle,
walk my daughter down the aisle. And that, didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I have to like constantly remind myself that it's not my life. It's not my life. They get to decide and do and choose and live however they want to live.
Mm-hmm.
I just get the opportunity to like come along for the ride and witness it.
Yeah.
And then I get to decide how I feel about all of it. I get to decide how I have to, I can hold on to that and be bitter and angry and frustrated, or just be like, yeah, that's okay. I'm still happy.
Yeah.
She's happy. At the end of the day, that's obviously what it always boils down to. I want my kids to be happy and healthy.
Yep.
Just that's it. And
Yeah.
whatever that looks like for them, I'm down.
Yeah.
And I say it like in this really simplified thing.
Yeah.
But then
It's just,
the process of navigating that it never ends. It's just this, like, that's the other thing, right? Kids, you get to experience a new level of pain, a new level of love, and you just have a partner for the rest of your life. Because nothing, like you said, you look through the lens now of how this affects them. So my life now is always through that perspective, and always has been for the last 25 years. Of how is this going to affect my children? Whatever decision I'm making, whatever I'm doing in my life.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to learn to, like, I'm at the phase now with it, especially where Asher's 18 and he's getting ready to embark on whatever his journey is going to look like and experience. And I have to set down that thing of like, I don't even know how to articulate it, but it's just this, like, it's such a privilege to get to kind of continually walk through life with them, even though it's in this, adjacent kind of off to the side.
This like
experience.
viewership.
Yeah. Like, I'm obviously just witnessing a lot of their life now vicariously and getting to share in the experiences with them and things like that. But
which is different. And I just want to, like, there's definitely a difference between watching your kids go through things and experience things and trying to help shape them and, like, hey, and be there for advice or support or whatever. There's that. And then I think there's some people, there's like living vicariously through your kids, right? Which I think is, like, I want to make sure that my kids have opportunities that I didn't, right? Like go-karts. Like, we could talk about go-karts because I like, anytime I can bring up go-karts. Like, I always love that stuff, but we never really had any of that stuff. Like, I think I found a mini bike frame and a dumpster once that I got to, like, over the course of 6 months, like, put together, and it worked for 3 months before I blew it up or something like that. I had a lawnmower I kind of turned into a go-kart. It had like a milk crate seat. I mean, like, it was trash, right?
Yeah.
But my son has some go-karts, right? And, like, gets to ride around on those things and stuff like that. So I want to provide the opportunities for him, right? But I don't want to necessarily, like, his ability in, like, athletics and stuff like that, I'm never going to look at and be like, I'm excited about this, right? Like, he could do nothing with athletics. He could do something with athletics. It won't be football. We don't let him play football. It's just too dangerous. But jujitsu,
right?
Totally fine.
Jiu-jitsu.
Right? You can try to murder that child over there. That's fine. But, like, don't play football. It'll hurt your head. But I just want to make sure that there's enough opportunity for them to figure things out in the world and live life and all that. And if they pick to go somewhere with something that is, like, cool, I don't know anything about that, right? But I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's anymore now, especially with our older kids. It's just, we cherish the time that we get to spend with them.
Yeah.
We had everybody come out this summer to celebrate Asher graduating and his 18th birthday, and the week of getting to spend, like, time with all of them was just unreal. It was so wonderful and so amazing, and it felt so good. And it was so much, like, the emotions of it. It was just so emotional. There was so much emotion behind it because I was so excited to see all of them and just get to be with all of them. And we had such a great time. That's one of the things that I was really grateful for as I was kind of reflecting back leading up to this episode and thinking about it. When Steph and I got married and we blended our families, we had this idealistic version of, like, everything was going to work out awesome. It was just going to be perfect. We were going to have this perfect little Brady Bunch family thing. And
the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. And it couldn't be further from what happened, right? It was just...
He didn't have a maid named Alice who took care of all the, like, with witty banter and stuff like that?
It would have been great. It was so challenging and so hard. And navigating all of those relationships and all the dynamics, and then trying to figure out, because we still had to like Stevie and Asher's biological dad was still in the picture for a while. So we were navigating, exchanges and parent time and weekends and all these kind of different things on top of all of it. And it just makes it so damn hard. Like it's unreal how challenging it is.
Your guy, like blended families.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very close to blended families, right? Jamie's oldest sister is married. They have a 19-year-old Evan son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not her biological son, but has been, I think I met the kid when he was like 8. So they've been together for a long time, right? And then Jamie's other sister, she had 2 kids. He had 2 kids. They're together, and now they have a kid. So there's 5 of them, right? And they're all within, I think, 5 years of each other, right? There's a grip of them, right? And then even Jamie's youngest sister, her and her husband, George, guy that I actually owned my gym with, so former Marine as well, great guy. George had 2 kids prior as well. So there's 4 of them total. They have their 2, and he has 2 from 2 other prior relationships. And they're a blended family, right? So I get to hear, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? It is, like you said, those pickups and drop-offs and exchanges, and you've got parents that are that I believe everybody wants the best for their child, but because they're not together all the time, what is best changes.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got these different ideas and thoughts and conversations that do or do not happen, right? And that shit's really hard.
Yeah, it was so hard. And they were all at like it was the perfect melting pot of really just chaos, because they were all at the same age, not the same age. Well, Maddie and Stevie are the same age.
Yeah.
And Gwen was 14 or 15 years old, but they were all going into that, at least the girls were going into that transition period into teenager or early teenage years. And so, like you couldn't pick a worse time to try to do it. You just couldn't pick a worse time because there's so much taking place. And to multiply it by 3 and then add the blended family thing over top, it was, we were just fucked from the get-go. But we didn't realize it. And I think was the saving grace was we thought that we could do it. And so
you did it.
That's the thing, right? We did it.
Yeah.
And we had so many awesome experiences. Like we really lucked out and had the thing that Steph and I always try to do was the family vacation or something the equivalent of, every year.
Yeah.
And we had just some really amazing family vacations with all of us.
Yeah.
And those were like the moments when it was Steph and I and our kids and nobody else and just us. That was just like, in those moments we did, like you talk about, Bert Kreischer has a funny bit where he talks about his family from the perspective of like, this is my SEAL Team 6, right?
Yeah.
And just how much of a cluster it kind of is. Like our little family unit when we were back in the day, all together, we operate really well.
Yeah.
Like it's really beautiful. It's a really cool little family. It's just so fucking fun. We had so many great vacations to like California and Disneyland and the beach. And we did the whole Yellowstone trip.
Yeah.
And all the time it's in that minivan crammed in there with all of them and everybody, pissed off at each other and still having, it's the idealistic kind of version of a family vacation. We had so many different times. I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
And it was like, cause that's like prime dad time too, right?
Oh yeah.
Like there's nothing better than getting to be.
That is 100% prime dad. Yeah. Dad vacation dad, prime dad time. Cause you're like
your glory. You just get to be all dad.
Yep.
And
all dad, all
your
glory,
hours.
Right?
It's so fun.
Yeah. You're driving, you're navigating, you're helping with decisions.
Yeah.
You're like kind of, hey, knock it off, right?
Yeah.
You're dadding
all the time
and parenting, and then at the same time, like it's the fun things to do, right? Like it's not in the day-to-day like go brush your fucking teeth,
right?
Right?
Yeah, and when they're, because that's the other thing. We obviously have done family vacations. You know, I did family vacations when it was in my first marriage, when they were younger and everything like that. But like that teenage year where they're able to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they packed their own bag. You know, they've got themselves squared away to some extent. It's so fun because then I don't have to stress as much about, you know, did they brush their teeth? Did we do this?
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, get ready. We're getting up. Get out of bed.
Yeah.
Get in the back. We're throwing you, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
And we're on the road.
And we're going to go see this awesome thing. And yeah, so fun.
Yeah.
Such good times.
That's, we just got to do our first, like,
one that was to the water park.
Yeah. Our first, and same dude, like Jamie and I have talked about it. Like we got to go up there and it was our own like SEAL Team 6, right? Like we were just like, all right, we all kind of understood what was going on and how we were going to handle things. And we got to go through it all. And there's still like the little hiccups, you know, like she stole my card.
Yeah.
You know, and no, those are my tickets, you know, and dumb things like that. But at the same time, like we had a great time and looking forward to doing it again. And I can't wait. There's so many like those trips that I'm looking forward to that we get to hang out. I'm looking forward to the times where I'm like, no, just go.
Right.
Like just leave me alone for a while. Right. I'm looking forward to all that stuff.
Yeah. We've had, because one of the things that we used to do in the summertime was Bear Lake. And so it's a huge lake up in the northeast corner of Utah, and it kind of borders Idaho and I think into Wyoming in some parts, but big old lake. And we would go up there and stay a week usually.
Okay.
And so it's just lake time, right? So much fun. And having all the kids there, and they're all at that fun age where you can totally just kick back and relax. And, you know, they're wandering around the park and doing different things. And they're so fun. Like, what's one of your favorite things about, let's do that. Let's wrap up with what's your favorite thing about being a dad? And like, I guess that's it.
My favorite thing about being a dad is teaching my kids all the cool things that I know about, right? And like I loved teaching my son and daughter like weapons handling, right? Like as much as, you know, I'm like, yeah, like my son and my daughter, like everybody shoots, right? But like before anything was ever in their hand, like my son and daughter could list off their weapon safety rules, right? Like, no, that's a requirement in my household. I love watching them learn things and teach things and do things. I'll tell you the truth. I love right now Lincoln. So like my dad wasn't a big football fan, but played football.
Yeah.
Right. I grew up a fan, but my dad didn't really watch a lot of football. So I got football fandom really from my friend's dad. He liked football.
Okay.
Right. So I learned some of that stuff from him. But I played football. Lincoln, we're not going to let play football. It's just a dumb sport to play for any reason. Love watching it, and I support anybody who, like, I've got godsons and nieces and nephews and all that who play, and I'm good for you. Like, go get it.
Yeah, the CTE, man.
It's just not. It's somebody who's had so many closed head injuries. It's just not worth it. But Lincoln watching football with me, especially right now, like, I just saw this meme and it was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I don't want your life. This is the best life will ever be. Like, there's not a better time to be a Lions fan, right? And him sitting there, like, when I'm watching the game and he says stuff and you're like, that's not what we're doing right now. But like, I'm so glad that you're here and you're passionate about it. And I know that you're only passionate about this because I'm passionate about it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've had that. Movies are that with Maddie and Gwen.
Yeah.
Where it's like I grew up sharing my love and passion of movies with them.
Yeah.
And so they're both crazy movie nuts. Like when they came out in the summer for the vacation, we had a bunch, because that's the other thing. Like when you've got adult kids and you're trying to like do vacation with all of them, obviously we're operating off of a bunch of different schedules.
Yeah.
And we've learned over the years with our kids that it's like, you know, they just get to decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, hey, this is what we would like. Let us know how this works for you. And then they're like, well, we can do this. We're like, okay, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
We're happy to get as much time as we can get. But it meant that we had a bunch of, like, Steph was driving one day going this direction with these kids, and I'm going this direction with these kids. And so there was a lot of back and forth because they weren't all here at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was times when I was in the van with Maddie and Gwen's husband, his name's Brevin. And we were coming back from Gatlinburg, and we're like kind of worn out, tired. It's been a long day. We've been a lot of driving and everything. But we started playing movie trivia with ChatGPT, just having ChatGPT ask us movie questions.
Okay.
And so it'll just randomly, you know, give me movie trivia from the 90s, movie trivia from the 2000s. So it's super fun. And to sit up front, be driving, and have my daughters be able to pick, like, they know the trivia better than I do for stuff that I should know. Yeah. It was like movie trivia from the 80s, and they're pulling it out. Oh, yeah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, such a proud dad moment. But then there was another moment because they wanted to do the whole Nashville thing. So we took them to Nashville, and we timed it so that it was the same day that they flew out. So basically we got to Nashville early to kill time, and then they would fly out. And we kind of did the whole walk around Nashville thing, and everybody was tired and worn out, and we didn't have anything else to do, but we still had like 2-3 hours left. And Gwen was like, hey, Dad, should we go see a movie? And I was just like,
let's tour.
Yes, I'm so excited. Because that was the thing. Like, we had a movie theater back home in Utah that was like the big stadium seating and recliners. And so it was a thing, you know, everybody pile into the van. We're going to go see a movie. And so to get to experience it again, and, you know, I fell asleep, which was hilarious because that was like the thing too. I would always, you know, we'd go watch the latest Marvel movie or whatever with the kids, and I'd pass out halfway into it because I'm fucking tired. But yeah, man, getting to share your love and your passions, and then to get to see them reflected back to you and your kids, it's so cool. Yeah. It's such a neat experience.
It's probably one of the coolest things that we get to do. Yeah. Right? Let's be a dad, be a parent, and just help each other. And watching the next generation, right? Like, come into it and figure things out. It's the best.
Yeah. Anymore now, I just do my best to just, like, it's just such a gift and an honor to watch their lives and to get to witness their lives and get to experience all of it. I just love it. Yeah. Like, being a dad is one of my favorite things about this experience of, like, living in my life, right? Yeah. And I can't imagine my life without it. It's just been such an incredible part of it.
It's the first thing, like, on, like, my LinkedIn profile, right? Or whatever. Like, it's the first thing I list is, like, I'm a father. I'm a husband, right? And then I think it goes father, husband, Marine, and then it's got some other bullshit in there, you know? It's all, the rest of it's bullshit after that. Those are the three important things in my world. Right. Right. Podcaster.
Well, I'm glad, dude. This is a fun episode.
Yeah, I'm really glad we got a chance to talk about this stuff. And I mean, there obviously we'll talk about our kids and all that and fatherhood.
This is it.
That's it. We're not going to bring them up again.
We're never talking
you're done to me. You're death to me. We're done. I think this is and this is stuff that I mean, there's so many people out there that are just trying to, like, figure this stuff out. And if anything, if I had anything to share with, like,
what's your best dad advice? Right?
Dude, best dad advice. Nobody's got it all figured out, right? Mistakes are going to happen, and the best thing that you can do is just learn from them. And in all honesty, the other thing I would say is, like, try to find other dads that you think are good dads and watch how they interact with their kids and watch how they handle situations and learn from them. And I think that I think we are better as a group of dads working towards the same goal. Find like-minded dads, right? Like, if you find dads that are like, yeah, fuck those kids, I don't care about them, right? Like, if they make it, they make it. You know, if she dies, she dies.
No, it's a really important thing that you bring up, because I think that, I mean, it's like anything else. You're in a community, and you've got your little family unit, but
Yep.
that family unit is moving around in bigger community.
Yeah.
And the men in that community will have shape and influence over your children.
Yep.
Just by the nature of being in community.
Yeah.
Because I can look back and think about the men in the community that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And some of them had really positive influence and shape over me, and some of them didn't.
Yep.
I've got some really shitty experiences with men that, you know, shaped and influenced me in negative ways.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important thing to highlight because, yeah, the men that, you know, are surrounding your kids
Yeah.
in school, community, churches, you know, all the different things that we do in life are going to shape and influence them. So it's an important thing to be mindful of.
Facts.
Yeah.
What about you? Best dad advice?
Best dad advice for me. Steph and I had an interview the other day with this woman, and it was all about mother stuff, but she talked about really all that kids need. And she was talking about it through the lens of like a mother, right? All kids need in a mother. But I feel like it's the same thing for a father is because you're not going to do everything perfect. Like that whole thing I was talking about at the beginning where it's like, you know, not being able to fix and solve everything for my kids. Like you can't. You're not going to be perfect as a father. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to be the type of thing where you feel like, I think, that you mess up far more than you succeed, right? And truthfully, I think kids don't need perfect parents, right? They don't need a perfect dad. They need a dad that's going to show up consistently. And I think it's really important that you also are a dad that's working on yourself. If you're focused, not solely focused, but if you're, if you have a focus on improving yourself and working on yourself and being somebody who's in that type of space, I think that's a huge benefit to kids because they are a really, really beautiful mirror.
Yeah.
If you know what you're looking at. Like sometimes you talked earlier about kind of living vicariously through your kids.
Yeah.
Or there's this whole stuff that parenting is, I mean, it's riddled with opportunity to fuck your kids up.
Yep.
But rather than being so afraid of that, I've been afraid of that for a long time in a lot of different ways with my kids. But just being on that path of trying to work and improve myself, I think has made me a better father because, you know, it puts you in a mind or in a state of mind that you are fallible and make mistakes. And I think that's an important thing for children to get to witness and watch is your parents mess up and see them apologize, like to you as a child, to their spouse, to their partner, right? All of those things of like seeing the repair process when we make mistakes is a real gift that you can give your kids. Yeah. And yeah, that's one thing that I've always tried to do at least, even though, you know, but
nobody's perfect.
Yeah. That's the thing. You can't be perfect. There's no perfect father out there. There's no perfect parent out there. No. But if you're committed to the process of trying to continually be a better version of yourself and at the same time, like, you know, be present with your kids and be there for your kids, then I think you're on the right path. 90% of the way there. So,
I agree.
I love you, dude.
I love you, man. This is super great.
Yep. Everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.